Yeah, and I suppose that when people read the website and they would say impossible, he couldn't do that, blah blah blah, he's like, it was only ever put on the website as an illustration of what the mindset needs to be. And although I never really gone into that on the website, it was understanding what this mindset was to be, if you like, suicidal in the sense that you're going to put it all on the line for what you need to do, or have experienced this kind of supernormal power where you've done something out of the extraordinary which you've never done before and very few people could do unless they were under that same thing. And the hundreds of fights I've had and seen, and personalities I've come across and researched and observed, like Tyson, people like that, watching, analysing, and looking at people like that, you start to understand what this mindset is or contains, and whether or not your training is actually addressing that. And what I found is when I was training in the martial arts, if you like, that they weren't addressing that. If anything, they were actually trying to suppress it. Yeah. They didn't want that. You know, so the object of the training wasn't to encourage or arouse this animal within you, this primal kind of drive, and give it direction of a combative nature, but actually just discipline you and suppress whatever aggression, whatever violence you had inside. And that didn't, as someone who's fought on the street, even when who understood what this drive was and what it could do, then it didn't make sense to actually suppress it, but find a way of actually touching it, getting in touch with it. And that's why I used to say, like when I looked at Aristotle, reading about Aristotle and the animal, how the animal makes its change of position by pressing against it, I've always thought that the process has always been of how an animal interacts with its surrounding environment. How this process of movement, right from the point of seeking to gratify a kind of primal need of hunger, of sex, violence, whatever that might be, of domination, how that energy is then used through, again, primal movement patterns, reflex behavioral, things which have evolved over millions of years, how that is used to accomplish that. Something which could be considered more of an essence than something which is the product of, rather than a movement. And learning a move, I want to understand what's going on underneath it. What is this essence? And that's why I study these, researched, if you like, analysed not only what I had experienced and was experiencing at the time, but what it seemed to be saying within literature I'd read on people who were fighters, Musashi, you know, people who were warriors in their sense that they were not warrior saints. They were partially, if what I would call, partially psychotic, if not fucking fully, you know, for not necessarily in their everyday life, but for that moment. And there was a program I remember watching on Channel 4, and they did a program, and it was on the, again, I think it was on the emergency mindset, and they were talking about partially psychotic, non-neurotic, extrovert personality types. You know, those aggressive personalities who usually have socially dysfunctional, antisocial. Antisocial, and usually as a consequence that they can't go by the rules. And they have this low cortical arousal where they need high stimulation. You know, it's the only thing that fucking switches you on, so you're always looking for it. Either on the street or in a high experience, a high sensation experience. And they're non-neurotic, and they don't function on detail. It's important what the weather, if you're a bass drummer, sure, it's important what the weather's doing, and you pack your parachute, but you don't want to get neurotic about it, about the detail of what you've got, of how you're going to accomplish what you're going to do.
And you're not anxious about the consequences.
No, and that was the one thing, you know. That's why, again, why I wrote that my mother, for this very same personality type as a child, somebody who's doing very dangerous things, then you're either telling the child, in my mother's case, and she couldn't negotiate with me any other way. That's why I got the beatings, because she was concerned about me. And you know, she rides over Ipoh Bridge, and I'm on the bridge, jumping off nude, you know, into like shallow water. that was the kind of, so naturally, she'd give me a beating, and usually she'd beat me with cricket stumps or whatever came to hand.
But just to clarify, I mean, that was part of her background. She had a very rough
it wasn't intended, but what came out of that was that, again, researching a lot of these personality types, they'd experienced similar things, and there was the amygdala and the hippocampus, if you like, from early childhood, is shaped.
It's kind of forged in a crucible, isn't it?
Yeah. In people like, abused children like that, they have very low serotonin. In other words, they have very low inhibition. It's something that inhibits that dopamine kind of looking for gratification. And having done that, you also know as a fighter you can endure pain. And you can remain focused on what you've got to do when in pain. And you can, through my training, I realized that I could sustain training for 8 to 10 hours, high intensity work. That's 4 2-hour sessions, back to back.
That was Japan, wasn't it?
Yeah. So you have I suppose what it is both the genetic content there. You know, it's your nurture and nature. And you have your life circumstances which are producing this mindset. But you can't, that's an individual thing.
Well, yeah,
you can't teach that.
Yeah, but
what you can do is take from it, extract from it what is essential to it. You know, you need to be able to focus on whatever cues, scanning for cues constantly like an animal. You need to be doing that in everyday life.